Hi and welcome back. In our last section we built the main page of our social media application. In this section, we will finish off our social media platform by adding a message view in the form of a pop-up and complete the project by building out our profile page. In this video in particular, we will cover the first item, creating the message view. We will once again break down this video into a few different sections. First of all, let's look into building out a pop-up container. Then, structuring the message list and contents, and finally some finishing touches by adding some further buttons and actions. Bootstrap has a component that allows us to display various content, from lists to forms, images, etc. in a pop-up window. This is also known as a modal window. By default, this modal content will be displayed hidden until triggered. At the very bottom of our index.html file, just before we include the JavaScript, we will create three nested divs with the respective classes of being modal fade, then modal-dialog, and then finally modal-content. In the div with the class of modal-dialog, we will place a role attribute of document. This is an ARIA label. This will help specify to accessible interfaces such as screen readers that this section is a grouped bit of related content. Inside the modal content, create another div with a class of modal-header. Within the modal header, we will create, the modal header for the pop-up window. This will store the message title and a small close button for the user to click to dismiss the modal. First, to create a close button, we will need this above our heading in the code so it can position itself correctly. Create a button with a type of button, a class of close, and a data attribute of data-dismiss that equals modal, and finally an ARIA label attribute of close. These attributes attach the close button to the close event and allow screen readers to know it's a close button with the ARIA label. Inside this button to display the X or close button, we will place a span with an ARIA-hidden attribute to true and the contents of ampersand times semicolon to display an X as a close button. After this button, we'll create a h4 with a class of modal-title and the content of messages. For the sake of having something to show as content, we can create a modal-body div after the modal header and include a paragraph tag with some mock content. Let's update our page HTML so we can actually view this in the browser. As mentioned, by default the modal window will actually be displayed hidden. On our menu, if we update the message anchor tag to include a few data attributes such as data-toggle modal, which lets the browser know that it's going to open up a modal, and set the data-target to #messages, the soon-to-be ID of our modal. Finally, let's head back to modal. On the very top root modal component, let's add some following IDs and some attributes. Let's set the ID to the same data-target we set prior, so messages. Let's set the tab index to -1. This will stop the browser actually auto-focusing on the modal if it's displayed none. Let's set the role to equal dialog, another ARIA tag to let the browser and accessible devices know that this is a dialog pop-up. Let's set another ARIA label, which is ARIA-label by, to messages. And finally, let's set the ARIA-hidden to true. This will let the browser know that this will actually be hidden, so the screen readers shouldn't pick this up. Alright, now let's view this in the browser. So now having added that code to link the modal and the messages button over here, we should now be able to open the modal by clicking the messages. And as you can see, we now have a modal pop-up that displays the content here. The modal component is working well. All the associated actions open and close work perfectly, with minimal effort. Let's now remove the modal body and paragraph. In its place, create a div with a class of list-group. Within this div, include a series of anchor tags with the classes of list-group-item with some dummy content. Each list group item will actually host a media object as we previously built. In fact, we can copy the who-to-follow media group and repurpose it. Having pasted it in, we can now remove the button and update the anchor tag around the profile image to just be a div. Otherwise, this will conflict with the anchor tag that is wrapped within. To help flesh this out further, under the paragraph tag inside this media component, add another paragraph with no classes and just some sample text. Let's now view this in the browser. As you can see, we now have a message within our list, as a profile image, profile name, and a message over here. Now you might notice there's quite a large gap underneath the profile image. This is due to some inheritance with margin. We can go ahead and go back into the code and fix this. We can remove this spacing once again by applying some utility classes to reset the margin. Apply m-b-0 to both the media object and the message paragraph. Now for the sake of this demo, we should copy this anchor tag list group item a few times to kind of flesh out the modal itself to see how messages look when they are within a list. Now let's once again head back into the browser. As you can see, we have now fixed the margin and spacing underneath the media object to be quite nice. And as you can see now, as the list kind of is bolstered out with more than one message. One last step will be to include some further actions to help guide the user. After the list group, create a div with a class of modal-footer. With inside this, add two buttons. The first with a class of btn-primary, and the second button will have a class of btn-secondary. The first button will be a dummy button for new messages. Add the content new message. The second will be a close button, so we'll need to include a data-dismiss equals modal, letting the browser know that this button can trigger the closure of the modal. Once again, let's finally check this out in the browser. Let's open it up here, and as you can see here, we now have a modal footer with some actions. The close button will now actually close the modal itself. That's it for our first video in extending our social media platform. We covered off on how to create a modal window, structure our content within the list group, and finally add some further actions that guide the user.